Hey everyone, so I'm really excited that the Angular Signals Forms package is coming finally, and it's going to be a huge update from the previous template and reactive form, a nice alternative to them, completely integrated with the Signals APIs in Angular. So currently it is part of the next version, the 21 version, which will be upcoming most probably in November or December. But we need to be prepared for that. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what the signal form is and how they work and how we can use them to create simple and complex forms, just like we do with template and reactive forms. As an example, I'm going to use a not so simple form, as you can see here. It's not so simple because it has basic validations, but it also has custom validations, for example, in the date of birth, and it will also have cross-field validations. That is common way to validate passwords. And then we have also conditional validations and conditional showing and hiding of fields. So all of this I wanted to cover so that you can get a good idea of how easy it is to actually do using signal forms. Okay, so I have this project all set up. You can see that we have the Angular version as 21x0. If you want, you can also create a new project using this version in order to continue this. And let's get started. So first of all, what are Angular signal forms? So Angular signal forms are basically a combination of template and reactive forms. With I feel when I was testing it, I felt more closer to the reactive forms approach than the template driven forms. But the great thing about it is that it's reactive forms, but with signals integrated, so you don't have to use RxJS at all, if at all. Okay, so we have our basic form layout, which I generated through AI, and you can do that too if you just want to test out things. And it's using Tailwind styling, so no component library at all. And we have these basic fields that we want to add our form to. Okay, so let's get to the code, and we have our app.ts here, and this is our form here. It's using Tailwind classes here. So we have the input field here for the first name, we have this input for the last name, and so on. Okay, so let's go down there and let's go in our component here. Great. So how do we actually create a signal form first? In order to create a signal form, the first thing you need to do is you need to create a type for the data for your form. Okay, so you have to create a model, and this is important because everything flows from this model in Angular signal forms. Okay, so I already have a type that I created for personal info, which covers all of these fields that we have here along with their types. Okay, so next what I have to do is I just need to create a new signal here. I'm going to call this as personal info, and this is going to be signal personal info. We're going to import it from Angular core, and we're going to have all of the other fields as well. Okay, I'm just going to turn off the cursor tab here because it's going to interfere in the coding as well, because AI IDs don't really know much about signal forms as yet, so they're going to give really crazy suggestions. So we have personal info. It is a signal and it is a type personal info. Okay, the date of birth is the new date, and all of the others are strings. Has emergency contact, which is this checkbox, has a false. All right, so we have our signal. To create a signal form, all you have to do is you just need to use the form function. Okay, so we are going to declare a personal form. We are going to say that form, and we are going to import it from Angular forms signals, right? So remember, we imported from Angular form signals, and then we give this dot personal info. Okay, remember, we don't give the value, we give the signal itself. So this makes it all reactive, and this form is then going to create fields based on all of these data items that we have given in our signal. Okay, and so this is going to be the single source of truth, you can say. You don't have multiple or duplicate sets of data as you need to maintain if you want to work with signals and reactive forms. You have just one source of data, and that is this signal. And if you change the signal, it is going to automatically update it in the personal form fields if they are bound to the UI. And if you change anything on the UI, it's going to automatically sync with the personal info signal. So it is two-way data binding, which is really nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next thing, which is binding these separate fields to the separate input elements that we have in our template. Now we do that by using a control directive. Okay, so let's import the control directive here. Let's say we have this control directive, and let's go to the first field here. And in the input field, we are going to bind this control to personal form, and we can access each of the fields with strict typing here. So that is really nice. Now this control directive is sort of an equivalent to the form control name that we had, or the form control directive that we were used to in reactive forms. But the great thing is that we don't actually need to have a form group at the top here. We just need to bind the individual controls here, okay? So personal form, and then we're going to do first name here. You can see that we have the strict typing here, all right? And that is it. So this field is now bound to the first name value of the signal. All right, so now I'm just going to use the cursor tab to do this quickly for all of the other fields so that we can do it easily. So last name, we have date of birth, okay? And we have password here, and we have confirm password here, and we have emergency contact here, then we have emergency contact name, and we have emergency contact phone. Great. So let's just turn it off again because we don't want to interfere. So we have our fields bound to our data here, okay? And now you can see when it reloads the form, you can see that we have the date of birth giving the value of 17 September, which is the current date. And so we can see that the date of birth was set to new date. This was the initial value. So setting an initial value is really simple. You just need to give the initial value of the signal, all right? And you can give any value here. So if I give, for example, Zwabe here and save this, you can see that it automatically fills it on the form here. And if I change things here, it's also gonna update the signal here. Now, in order to show that on the UI, I'm just gonna add a bit of stuff here. I already have some markup here. I'm just gonna comment this out for now. And here we have personal form, and we can access the form if we use the accessor here like this, and then we can get the value of this form. This is going to give the underlying signal value of the form, okay? And because it is a signal, it is going to be reactive. So whenever it changes, it's going to show us. We're using the JSON pipe here. So we need to import the JSON pipe at the top here so that we can show that easily. So let's go at the top and we can do JSON pipe here, okay? And now let's test this out. So let's just open this up here briefly and let's just see whether it works. So you can see our form data is here. And when we change it, you can see that it updates in real time. So two-way data binding, as I mentioned before. So this is one of the greatest things about the signal form. We don't need to do anything extra to actually get a signal out of these forms automatically. All right, so we have our values bound with the form, really simple. And all we needed was this one line to create this form. Pretty neat. But there's actually no fun without validations in a form. So we can leave it empty and we can press submit and it's gonna work fine because we've actually not added any validations to the form as yet. Okay, so how do we add validations? Well, that is the second parameter of this form function, and this takes in a function with a path here like this. And here then we need to specify a schema for our form or for the data of the form. Now, what is a schema? A schema is basically a set of rules used to describe our data, used to describe our form. Basically, what should happen when, what field should show when, what should be the validations required for different fields. So all of that is contained in this schema portion here. And it's really easy to specify this schema. And let's first try to add some basic required validations to our required fields here. So the first name field is required. And this path basically is the root path of the form. So this basically can be used to refer to any of the subfields as well just by using dot notation, all right? So let's start with the first one. And so we're going to use the required function. So the Angular Signal Forms package, it actually provides these functions, validation functions for the basic validators, just like they were in the Reactive Forms API, as you remember. So we have required, we have minimum length, minimum, maximum, email validation, and the others as well, okay? So we're going to use the required one here, and then here we just need to give path.firstname like this, okay? And that's not it. In Angular Signal Forms, you can also specify a message as part of the error in the form schema itself, all right? So we're going to say that first name is required, all right? And let's test this out. So you can see nothing happens because, well, we haven't actually added any indication on the form itself. So first what we're going to do is we're going to enable this code that I have here. And this is going to then tap into the error summary signal that we get from the personal form itself, okay? And let's just see what that tells us. So now we can see that we already have a first name is required message and an error of kind required here. Okay, so in template-driven forms or reactive forms, we had an error which had a type, and that was just about it, I guess. But in Angular Signal Forms, the error is of type this. It can have a kind of error. So this kind of error is going to tell you the type of the error. And then we have a message of the error too, so that we can show it on the UI. Okay. So as you can see, we already have a basic required error. Now if I enter my name here, you can see that the required error goes away instantly, and you can see that we get this error again when we remove this. So our error is getting applied correctly. Now we just need to show this error on the UI. Okay, how do we show this error on the UI?
Before we move on, I'd just like to plug in my new revamped website, which I recently revamped to be more helpful to Angular developers like you who are trying to learn Angular, especially with real world projects. So I try to present real world projects in my tutorials and in my YouTube videos. So you can see that we have the main page here. It's a nice link to go to the free tutorials. So you have this free tutorial section here, and the great thing about this is that I have collected sort of a playlist for all of these. So for example, if you are interested in the customizable dashboard series, when you click on this, you're going to get a whole section here where you can access all of the videos for this sequence by sequence so that you can follow this if you have not yet seen them. Okay. And you can also get the source code here. As you see here, you can subscribe to the channel from here. So I have my most popular tutorials here. You have the Angular Signals crash course, the Angular Forms Designer, and I will be continuously adding to that later. Okay. Obviously, you also have the code shop here where you can purchase the code if you'd like to. And you have my blog where I share my technical articles sometimes related to Angular, of course. So all in all, it is a nice learning hub for Angular, and I invite you to visit the site. It's webhunt.com, really easy on my name, and I'll be continuously adding more stuff to it to make it more useful for you as an Angular developer. So now let's get back to the video.
So let's go to the UI here, and let's go to the field here. And below this field, we are going to write our error here. So let's just disable our this here as well, like this. And let's create a div here and make it error bg, sorry, not bg, but text red 500. Okay. And it's already given something first name.errors.json, but we don't want it like this. We actually want it to be something like this, right? So we want to give a for here, and we're going to do error of personal form first name. And now we need to access the field itself. So we are going to go in the value, and then we are going to get errors here. Okay. Now this is an array of all of the errors set on this field. Now because we specified the error on this field specifically here at the bottom, if you can see, path.first name is this error is going to be attached on the first name field here. All right. Great. So let's go back and let's do first name.errors. And then we need to have a track. So we can do a track on the kind because there could be only one kind of error at one time. All right. So inside of this, we can do text red 500 and we can do error.message here. All right. Okay. Let's save this and let's see. So once we save this, you can see that we have first name is required. Let's add some padding at the top as well here. Okay, great. So we have first name is required, the error message, and once we write something, the error message goes away. But what if we don't want the error to show right away? We only want to show it when the field is touched, which is the usual case that we want to do in most forms. So we need to add an if condition here, and we can do personal form dot first name dot touched, and we can encapsulate all of that here. And you can see touched is also a signal. So this is reactive by default. So whenever this field is going to get touched, it's going to automatically trigger this if condition. All right. So let's save this and you can refresh this. And now you can see the error does not display, even though the error is there, but it's not showing here because our touch condition here. And if we click on this and then we leave it, then you see that we have our first name condition here. Okay. Or we tab into this. Great. So this is the behavior that we want to do. And this is sort of the basic thing that we need to do on every field here. Okay. So let me just use AI to our benefit here. And let's add all of the required fields here. Instead of this, we're going to do all of our required fields here. So the first name, last name, the date of birth, the password, confirm password. Has emergency contact is not really required. It's going to be either false or this. Now emergency contact and emergency contact phone is going to not be by default required. It's going to be conditional. So we're going to handle that later. Okay, so we have all of these validations set here, and you can see that we can see all of the validations now applied here on each of the fields, and we can now add the same code here if you'd like to. But you can see that there's a lot of duplication here. So what we can do is we can convert it into a reusable form field as well, reusable error field as well. And you can see that we already have a component that I created. For this purpose, we are taking a field as an input, the field state, and then we are testing the touch property and we are showing the errors property. Great. So now we can go back here and we can just do app field error here. And let's also import this component, and you can do field and personal form.first name. And now we can do it for every field here as you want it to. Okay, so app field error last name. Similarly, we do it for date of birth. Similarly, we do it for field error here. Similarly, do it for confirm password. Okay, so all of our fields are done now. Okay, all right, so let's test this out, and you can see the last name, the date of birth. If we remove this, for example, you see the date of birth is required. We have this field as well, and all of the other fields also show our error messages, the ones that have required field validations. Okay, so let's move on to the next complex thing, and that is adding custom validations. How do we add custom validations? So, for example, we need to add a custom validation to date of birth here, and we want to check whether the date entered is basically of someone who is 18 years or older here. So, how do we check that? And we need to add a custom validation for that because there's no default validation. So, for adding a custom validation can be done using the validate function. And in this case, you have all of these required validation. We can actually just go here and we can do validate, and we can say that, okay, validate path to date of birth here. And then the second option here, the second parameter here is basically a function which will be the validate function here. We get a set of values here. So we get value and value of. Value of is used to get any of the value of a different field than the current field. Value is basically the current field, so that is the date of birth. In this case, we just need the date of birth, so we are just going to handle that. Okay, we are going to just find out years, and we are going to do new date dot get full year minus value dot get full year. Okay, and value is basically a signal, so we are going to do value dot get full year. And if years are greater than 18, if years are less than 18, then we are going to return not the message as it is right now, but we are going to use the custom error function here to define a custom error here like this. Okay, so we're going to do message, and we're going to do kind. We're going to say minimum age. Okay, this will be our kind. Okay, so this is going to return the case of the error, but if all is fine, we can just return a null here. Okay, just like we do with reactive forms and the validators there. Great, so we have our validate here. Let's test this out now, and let's save this. And you can now see that we get required field here. But here you can see when it's touched, you get you must be at least 18 years old. And you can see the error is set here. And let's try it out whether it works on an older date. So you can see 1998 is older. The error goes away right away. Let's put it back. 2023, you must be at least 18 years old. So this is nice and simple how to add a custom validator. Okay, next let's see how to add cross-field validators. So cross-field validation is when you need to check for validation combining two different fields. And a common use case in that is when you have a password and you have a confirm password field. Okay, so you need the password and the confirm password to match. Otherwise, there is going to be a cross-field validation error. All right. So for a cross-field validation error, we just use the validate function again, but we make sure to actually give the path instead of the paths.password or the path or a single field. Okay, so that we can get access to both of these fields inside of the validator. So we're going to do validate. It's important to use value of here. All right. So we are just going to check if value of, and we're going to do paths.password. Path.password is not equals to value of paths.confirm password. And we're just going to do return. If it's not equal, then we're just going to return the same thing, custom error. And the custom error, we're going to do kind as passwords mismatch. Okay, mismatch. And the message is going to be password should match. All right. And if nothing happens, we're just going to do return null here. We can also obviously check for the value to be null. In fact, I would also want to add a check for this. So I'm just going to do password is equals to value of paths.password, and confirm password is equals to value of confirm password. And then I'm just going to do here. First, I'm going to check whether they have some value because I don't want to do anything otherwise. And confirm password, both should have a value and both should not be equal. Okay, then we should give an error, otherwise it should give null. All right, so we have this validate, and it is validating on the password and the confirm password only. It's running on the whole form itself. So because we have given the path of the form here in the schema, this means that this error is going to be applied not on any specific field but on the form itself. All right, so let's save this and let's test this out. So we're gonna do, let's move it here a bit, and let's say that we have testing here, and we write test here. And you can see that we have password should match here. If we do this, you can see the passwords match error goes away. And if we do something like this, you can see that the password mismatch error appears here. But how do we actually show it on the UI? So we need to add another field error, and let's add another field error just below the confirm password here, outside of the other field errors here. So we're just gonna give the field as null form, right? Because we want to get the errors of this personal form. All right. So you can see here that we have password should match here. It's a bit down here, so we just want to put it below the div here, I guess, somewhere here. All right. And let's test this out. So now you can see that because there's no value in the password, it's not showing that error. It's not applying that error because that was a condition. And if we have testing here and testing here, both, you can see the values here. There's no error there. And if we just remove this, you can see that we have password should match here like this. All right. So great. So this is how you add a cross-field validation in just a few lines of code here. Great. Okay, so next let's look at how to conditionally show, hide, and conditionally apply validations to our fields. So in our case, you can see the last addition information section here. I want to, when we tick mark this, I want to show these two fields, and when I uncheck this, I want both of these fields to hide. So to do this, because all of the values are signals, you can just add a signal here, check here, and you can do has emergency contact, and in the emergency contact here you can do if, and you can do personal form dot has emergency contact, and we can get us value of this field. Great. Let's enclose the emergency contact fields in this. Okay, so we have enclosed the emergency contact fields in this, and let's try this out. You can see that I've already hidden here. So once I check this, I have this value, it shows these fields. But we need to do something more. So we need to also make these required when this checkbox is enabled. Okay. So this is an added condition, and it's a conditional required validation. So how do we do that? Well, it's really simple in the new Angular signal forms. So each of the functions that we have for validators, we have a property called when. Okay. So that when property can specify any logic that you need for this validation to apply. So for example, we need to apply these validations on the emergency contact name and emergency contact phone. So we are going to do required, and we'll do paths.emergency contact name. And we're going to do, okay, we have a message as emergency contact name is required. Name is required. That's name is required. But there is more that we can specify in this config object. And the next thing we can do is we can do when here. Okay, this when is basically a function which is going to return any logic or any condition. This also takes in a value of here. So what we want is we want a value of, we already have the path above. So we're going to use the value of has emergency contact here. So if this value is true, then this validation should be required. This required validation should apply, right? So what we do now here is that we do the same thing for the emergency contact phone. Okay, we do phone, and we do phone is required, and we just save this. Once we tick mark this, you can see two new errors are added here, and the fields also show here, and you can see the validations are also showing on the fields below the fields as well when we touch it. Okay, and let's see whether the validations are getting applied, and you can see the validations are getting applied here as well. Great. And we uncheck this, and you can see the validation goes away. And just like that, we have conditional validations. What if we wanted to just disable them? Okay, we didn't want to hide them, but we just want to disable them. Well, in order to disable them, we can also do something similar, and it's all really easy. Disabling read-only hidden, that's also really easy. So what we want to do is we want to remove this condition here, all right? And let's say that it will show all of the time, but we need to disable them when this is happening. So required is fine, but we need to also add a disable function here, and we need to disable the paths.emergency contact. And then the second parameter here is actually the condition that we want to give. We don't need to give any when here. We just need to give the condition here. And the same thing, we have value of here. We get value of, let's make some more room here. So value of paths.emergency contact number. Okay. So if there is value of this, in fact, we need to make the reverse of this value. We will do the same thing for the phone as well. And let's say we do it for the phone here. The same thing for the phone here. So we can see now that we have these fields, and it's not checked, and you can see that it's disabled here. The fields are disabled. Once we check this, You can see. Okay, yeah, so it's still disabled. I think we made a mistake here. And we can do has emergency contact here instead of the emergency contact name and number. So we need to make it conditional upon that. Okay, great. So now you can see that it's disabled here. But when we tick mark this, you have these errors here and you have the fields enabled as well, and you can disable them again. So the fields are disabled again. So similarly, the case for read only and the other common state of the input fields that we are used to, like read only, hidden, and all of that stuff. Okay. So it's really simple to do. You can see how easy it is to actually specify different conditions. Okay, so our form is ready now, and you can see that it is a pretty complex form in terms of conditions, confirm the cross-field validations, custom validations, but we have all specified this in one convenient place in the form definition here in the form of a schema here. But you can see that we have about 6 or 7 fields and it has already got a bit complex. So it would be really nice if we can actually combine this or in sort of organize this into a better way. And the Angular Signal Forms package also provides a way to do that. That can be done by defining a separate schema using these and then applying it on that specific field. So let me show you an example here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shift the common or the groups of fields into their own schemas. So let's say that we create a schema. You can create it at the top of the file or you can also create it in the class itself, but let's create it in the top of the file here. So let's create a schema for the passwords, for example. So let's say that we create a schema for the password. We are going to say password schema. So this is going to create a password schema using the schema function. And the type here we are going to give as password. It should be a string, and confirm password, which is also a string, right? So this is the type of the schema. And then we're going to give the same thing, the path, which will be the parent path or the form path. And then within this, we can actually copy our schema logic that we had here. So for the passwords, we had these two. Let's take these from here. Let's shift these here. And then we have this one, the cross-field validator. So we can shift these cross-field validators here. Great. So we have a password schema here defined. Now we can use this password schema and we can just do apply, and we can do paths, and we can do password schema. So this is really nice to encapsulate this path schema. You can easily shift this schema in a separate file. If it's a very large schema, you can reuse these schemas across different forms as well if you'd like to. So this makes it really convenient to organize your schemas. Okay, so we apply this to this path, and let's now test this out and see whether our validations still work. And you can now see that we have our required validations working fine on the password. We can see whether we have the password should match validator also works fine. Okay, and it's really easy to disable this, so we can just comment it out, and you can see we now don't have any validations here. So we can see that no validations are applied here. We need to apply this, we can do this, right? Great. So apply is a really nice tool. You can convert these required emergency and disabled things also in a separate schema for you. Great. Okay, so this was just scratching the surface of the new upcoming Angular Signal Forms package. And I foresee that it's going to make it really, really easy and convenient to create forms quickly with much less code than before. So things are changing for the better in Angular, especially come Angular version 21 in around November or December. So what do you guys think? Would you use this signal forms, or do you prefer the template and the reactive forms as it is? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time with another video.